Okay, hi everyone. I don't think Zoe needs any introduction, judging by the crowd that's sitting here today, but she's got a very special place in my heart. All the other kids were being introduced to their makers today, be it one fertility clinic or the other. They were meeting all their doctors, but my child's a Zoe baby. So he came through today to see Zoe. So she's got a very special place in my heart, and so I'm going to be doing the introduction for her. Thank you. Zoe specializes in providing adoption-related services both locally and internationally. Zoe has been involved in the field of adoption for more than, it can't be 20 years.
No.
More than, let's be kind, 30 years. More.
Plus.
She is a specialist in adoption, infertility, grief, statutory and family preservation, surrogacy, forensic, and other legal issues. Zoe has worked in private practice and for a number of social development and child protection organizations. Please make sure you ask her lots of questions. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I would have liked it to be a little bit interactive, and I would appreciate your questions. And I'm going to try and cover the subject and try not to make it too dry, but to give you an overview of the three parts of adoption, the three important parts, which are the prospective adoptive parents, the child, and the biological parents. So I'm going to try and cover that briefly, and then if I have more of an understanding of what you're looking at, which you can share with me, I can go to it in greater depth. Okay, so why adoption? Why are we wanting adoption? For what purpose? Who will it benefit? The adoption triad, those are the three people that I mentioned to you, the three aspects. Oi, what happened here? What happened? Went blank? Oh, maybe there? Okay, there we go. I think these are... Oh, maybe. Thank you. So there's the adoption triad with the three aspects that I mentioned. The biological parent. Adoption is a wonderful solution for an unplanned pregnancy. It's her empowered choice. She makes the choice, so does he, and it's never done against their will. They may not, it may be the only choice they can make at the time, but it is done willingly and no coercement. Then the child, that gives the child the opportunity to benefit from a family, and it is permanent and forever. Then, of course, the prospective adoptive parents who have the choice to be parents. Okay. Just because I've been around for a long, long time in this field, I have noted down what incredible changes there have been in this field. We were only allowed to do same-race adoptions. I think in 1991, the law changed, and we were allowed to do our first transracial adoption. We were only allowed to work with heterosexual couples, so usually, and also married heterosexual couples. That changed. We are now able to do same-sex couples, couples in a long-term permanent relationship can be applicants, single parents can be applicants. So all that has changed in the last 20 years, I would say. We had only national adoptions, and I'm only accredited to do national adoptions. There are inter-country adoptions, where we have agreements with other countries. There's certain countries, but our babies go out to those countries. I think we had an agreement with India. One of our agencies did, but the criteria were really difficult. So we are no longer bringing in babies into the country that I'm aware of. And inter-country adoptions are only done by child protection agencies accredited in adoption. So there's a lid for every pot, and if we cannot find a home for a baby in South Africa, we are able then to make that child available for inter-country adoptions. In years gone by, we had only closed adoptions. In I think it was the 70s, we started doing open adoptions where they could meet one another, and there was an exchange of letters and photographs, but the identity of the adoptive parents were not disclosed to the birth parents. And another thing that's changed is something called post-adoption agreement, where maybe a couple wants to give up a baby for adoption, or birth mother, birth father, and they want to know what's happened to their child, how the child is progressing. It doesn't mean to say that their identity is revealed, but they want to know where that child, how the child is doing. So through the social worker, they could get letters and photographs, but never again with identifying detail. So it's not as threatening as it may sound. Okay. The adoption is a two-step judicial process in which the legal obligations and rights of the biological parents are terminated. And when I say terminated, when the child becomes adoptable, they no longer have rights. So when you hear these stories, oh, the birth parents are going to come and haunt us and worry us, that's what you see in the movies. It doesn't happen with us, okay? And we are always there to troubleshoot it for you. And adoption also involves the creation of a parent-child relationship between individuals who are not naturally related. That's a legal terminology. Okay, the purpose of adoption is to protect and nurture children. It is a wonderful, wonderful solution for a child to have a permanent, secure family unit. Also, the permanency is the thing that we focus on. And also it confers all rights and obligations of parenthood onto the adoptive parents. And we also have to find, when we're doing an adoption, the adoptive parents must be the most suitable for that child. So there is an element of matching. Okay, I don't want to go through laws and dry stuff here, so I'm going to skim through it, unless some of you want that specific detail. Is there anybody, by a show of hands, who want to hear all the finer details? Because if you decide on this process, I would do that with you anyway in a personal interview. Okay. So in terms of adoptability of a child, I'm sure you've heard about children's homes filled with children and they don't have parents. That doesn't mean to say those children are adoptable. They are not necessarily adoptable. They are children who could have been removed because of risk circumstances from their parents, and then we work towards returning them. I say we because I work for a child protection organization in the morning, and I work on family preservation, trying to keep families together. Those are not adoptable children. A child only becomes adoptable under certain circumstances. The other thing, we as a practitioner in adoption, I do not look for babies for my clients. The focus is on looking for suitable homes for my babies. But while I say that, it doesn't mean I disregard your needs. I need you. We need you there to offer those homes. And for us to prove that you are suitable, I keep using that word. I will go through it. I will explain later what suitable means. You see, we're governed by this act. This is the Children's Act. It was promulgated, it's actually of 2005, but it was promulgated 2010, and it is the first time in all my career that we have got a brand new act in its entirety. It changed the face of so many areas: surrogacy, adoption, inter-country adoption, and divorce and marriage. It's all there. So the Act talks about suitability, and I need to share with you what it means by suitability. Okay. So biological parents have to be counseled. They have to know what they're doing. They go before a magistrate to sign consent. They need to go there willingly. If we have a birth parent that goes to the magistrate, the presiding officer, they call them, and they are in tears and hysterical, but saying they want to sign consent, the presiding officer will hopefully send them away to think about it. And when they sign consent, they have 60 days in which to change their minds. So it's a very tenuous period, and that child is not adoptable until that 60 days is over. In the old days, and I'm not talking about that old, in the 90s, we were still doing adoptions where the adoptive parents could be present at the birth, they could welcome their baby from day one and go home with the baby. But then they'd live on tenterhooks waiting for that 60-day period to pass. We have been given an instruction, 10. We've been given an instruction that we cannot place babies before the 60 days are over, because those children are not adoptable. The birth parents are not exercising their rights to change their minds. And I know it's still happening, but actually when we have to take this matter through social development, because they screen our adoption report, they screen every matter, and they actually have to issue us with a letter saying, you have followed proper procedure, therefore you can approach the court. And if we haven't, we will not get that letter. So we cannot take a chance, and I would never put you guys through something like that. It just wouldn't be fair. And then the child, we are ordered to remove the child. And I've done that, I think, in all my career 5 times, and each time it's happened, I've said, that's it, I'm giving up. I don't want to do this work anymore, because you people become very dear to us. We bring you joy, and then we have to go immediately by court order and remove the child. So that's not the way. When you get a baby today, that child is adoptable, everything has been signed, and the child is now ready to be able to finalize the process. I've only got 10 minutes. So I'm going to skip through some slides that I have already touched on. Okay, just to say that only accredited adoption, social workers can do adoption. If you do not see the word accredited in the field of adoption, you cannot use that social worker. So certain child protection organizations are also accredited, not all. So if you go to child welfare, you have to see that they are accredited. We are allowed to work anywhere in the country, but we prefer to work in Gauteng, where we can manage the process. Okay. I'm jumping. Still time. 10 minutes. Okay, but I want to give them time for questions. I can't hear. Oh, can I? Okay. Also, if you want to adopt a child, you have to be living in this country as a South African citizen or permanent resident. This is not in the Act, but this is a practice of the courts. So we always feel so sad that we have to turn people away. But permanent residency is imperative. The other thing is sexual offences clearance. It's called a Form 30. That is something that you have to apply for. And police clearance. And people panic and they say, oh, I was found guilty of stealing hubcaps when I was 16 and I've still got a criminal record, and he's now 35. As long as you share it with us, we can show you what to do. It's not going to be held against you. We will then reveal that to the court and we apply for an expungement. The other important thing is that when somebody comes to us to adopt a child, I always say to the applicants, I'm never going to phone you. The ball is in your court. You want this to happen, you've got to be committed to the process. You've got to show me by driving that process. I will certainly not drive it for you. So you can be in the middle of the screening or have completed the screening and I won't hear from you, and eventually after a couple of months, I just close the file. So it's got to come from you. I'm not selling a commodity. You must want that badly. You've got to be committed. Here we go. Did I go one too many, I think? Sorry, I think I'm going back one. You must be committed. And I want, look, a lot of couples come, or applicants come, they're very heart-sore, they're dealing with fertility issues, they want a quick fix. That child will not fill the gap. Unfortunately, the fertility issues need to be worked through to an extent. It never goes away. We've learned that. But at least I don't want that adopted child to be the booby prize. It must be the next best thing. Obviously, having your own child is first prize. But if it can be the next best thing, it's wonderful. And you both need to be committed if you're a couple, because sometimes I have somebody in my office and the one sitting at the other end and this one sitting and watching me and listening to me. And I've turned around and I've said, it was a husband in one case that I can think of, and I said, why are you here? I can see you're not interested. And he turned around and he said, she told me I'm history if I don't come today. Well, we're talking about a child, and you've both got to want to. The child could be perfectly healthy when we place a child, and maybe things happen. It could happen to your own, and the child develops an ailment or something. You know, if you're not committed, it's not going to sit right with you. Okay, the screening. Would you like to hear about the screening? This word screening, the mystery word. Okay, so we all, even though I'm a private practitioner in my field, we all follow the same criteria. And at the end of the day, we have to present that criteria of suitability to the court. So I touched on some documentation like the police clearance, sexual offences, ID. We send you an adoption pack, which is massive, but you work through it slowly. I have a number of interviews with each of you, getting to know you, your education, your career, your relationships as a couple, your background history with your own family of origin and your relationships with them presently and how they would accept an adopted child. Also, understanding your expectations. That's very, very important. This is one time in your life, depending on the availability of children, but you can say, listen, we're not prepared to take a child with a handicap. We want a healthy child. You can absolutely stipulate. And when we match you to a child, we will certainly, 5 minutes, okay. We will certainly keep that in mind. I'm going to leave you, I've barely touched on this, but I want to leave you time for questions.